For our next activity, it will be facilitated. I'll help the facilitator with the activity one. We'll be having what is called a Ruby clinic. The speaker, the facilitator will explain it further, and he's the one who actually suggested this activity for tonight. I'm having trouble trying to introduce this person because he has a very long story career, like maybe even longer than, maybe he started his career when I was a kid, I don't know. Because I met him back, if I remember it correctly, I met him first back in 2012 or 2013 in the Ruby conference in Singapore called the RubyCon. I don't know if you remember that, but I remember it well. We met outside the conference hall, so that's where I first met him. And I'll just introduce him by his description that's in the RubyCon's website last 2018, because he used to be a speaker there. So he's a long-time software developer who started his software development career writing in an in-house accounting package for a construction company on an Apple II in AppleSoft Basic. I'll just pretend I understood that. So he's worked with several languages since then, and right now he's been mostly working with Ruby for the last few years. He's still on 4 continents and now spends most of his time split between Chiang Mai, Thailand, Western Virginia. So without further ado, Keith Bennett.
Thank you for letting me be here. I appreciate it. I will be a facilitator, but not necessarily an expert, and you can all share with that. I really love technical community, and I like to do my part to help when I can. And I go to a lot of meetups, and I see a lot of presentations, and I enjoy presentations, but I always feel this thing tugging at me like, can't we be doing more so that there's more involvement among the people in the group? And so these are some of my thoughts about that. Presentations are one-to-many communication, so there's one person sending information to the group, and any discussion about it is usually just a clarification of that unidirectional information flow. And so, again, that can be appropriate and helpful in some cases, but it's unfortunate that that's the exclusive means that we use in our meetups. Pretty much exclusive to give each other information. There's a greater variety of information that we can get when we have discussions. We have ideas bouncing off from people person to person, and ideas and directions can shift. And we can go places where we wouldn't otherwise go with a presentation. Sometimes that might be not a productive place to go, sometimes it is, but at least we can experiment and try to diversify our information. Another issue is in terms of developing individual community members. When we're just audiences in a presentation, we're not really growing that part of us. We're not growing that part of each other. We have people who would probably attend many presentations and never say a word to the rest of the group, at least in a technical sense. And that's really unfortunate, because as a technical community group, our job is to engage each other, is to nurture each other, grow each other, for the more advanced people and experts to step out of the way sometimes and say to the less senior people, well, what do you think? And from this kind of collaboration springs familiarity and community, and it can help us in the future in terms of, well, in several ways. You know, we have connections. We know who knows what about what. We know, like, if we have a question or a problem sometime outside of the meeting, context, who we might ask that question to. Sorry, I didn't prepare this, so I'm a little bit awkward here, but basically, I wanted to explain how discussions, conversational communication can give us benefits that we don't enjoy with presentations alone. Now, so this is discussions and conversational, that's general, and the clinic is a specialization of that. Clinic, which is a glorified term for Q&A really, is just a format that we have where people can pose questions to the group, and anybody can provide an answer, and hopefully many people will. Unlike other formats, the great thing about the clinic is that the questions that are being asked are really important to the person at the time of the meeting. It's not just some kind of side interest or something esoteric. It's something that's really blocking them or frustrating them or just that they're really curious about. It could be free form, but it's probably helpful in terms of time management to get the questions in advance and then figure out like how much time to spend on each of them. And if the presentation of the meetup is advanced, you may want to give more weight to the beginning questions and vice versa. Because one of the things that I suspect is that a lot of people come to meetups and maybe they don't really click with the presentation and they never come back. You know? So if we really want to grow our community, we need to try to, I use the word hack our meetups to make them more approachable to a wide range of people from a wide range of backgrounds and skill levels, experience levels. In terms of infrastructure, certainly if you're remote, you have a shared desktop, but if we're in a room physically together like this, we do need a shared screen. I ran a clinic where we had a wireless keyboard and mouse, and like somebody asked me a question and I didn't understand. I just say, "Here's the keyboard. Show me what you mean." And you know, if you have a physical keyboard, if you can do that with a metal wire connected to it, it's so easy. And it's a great way to get people more involved. I mean, they're actually physically manipulating the keyboard, and so it's more of engagement. As a meetup organizer, clinics can be really great because they require no preparation at all. It's really the lazy organizer's dream. Of course, you know, you can ask people to pose questions in advance, and that's great. But and that's true of discussions too, by the way. Tonight I'm hoping to go to a clinic, but you know, there are also great things that you might want to discuss among yourselves, and questions that are really eating at you. And I find it fascinating to hear the viewpoints of different community members. So if you can't find a speaker, you can consider maybe we could just have a discussion. Because you've got a lot of really smart people in this room. So why not? In terms of how long it should be, it could be as short as like a 10 or 15 minute period between two presentations, if you have two presentations. Or if you'd only have one, you could make it one of those presentation time slots. There's no real, I don't think there's really any need for a consistency from meeting to meeting. Do it any time. Well, as much as clinics can be helpful for groups like ours here, if you have an organization of developers, it can be even more valuable there, because in addition to here, where we share a common language and framework and many programming tools, in your organization, you're also sharing a code base and an environment of information and domain and much more that make it much more likely that, number one, there'll be somebody who's qualified to answer the question, and number two, that will be of interest to more people. because there's more commonality of the mission and the content of the work. I sent out a request for people to comment on some of this stuff, and one of the most common gotchas that was mentioned was, when you do something like this, and this applies to any discussion in the room, you have to be really careful about dominant personalities and people who like to hear themselves talk. Not including me. But really, it's a very common thing that you have people that are more talkative, and I've even had the experience of some of these talkative people interrupting people who've been trying to say something for the first time in the meeting, and this is something which you as a group should not tolerate. Certainly the facilitators should not, but even as group members, in terms of being courteous to each other and giving each other equal time and equal respect, this is something that you should really value and have as part of your, in my opinion, of your mindset and the way things should work. So I'm often trying to stop myself from talking and saying, well, what do you think? There are many different kinds of groups, you have different skill set mixes, and so it's not like there's one right answer about if you want to do this or how much you want to do this. I do think it's worth a try, and it could be very beneficial. As you do this more, people grow and people learn. I did a clinic every week at a former employer of mine, and these are people that were just starting out with Ruby, and I was usually the person, pretty much always the person answering the questions. But over time, they started answering each other's questions, and it was a wonderful thing to see. And so this is also a way for people to, well, for you to grow your community and for people to become more expert. And if you have people that are never saying anything and are always quiet, maybe they just really don't want to speak. But and there are varying opinions about this, because some people say don't bother them unless they want to be. But I feel like it's always good to offer a gentle, would you like to add anything to this? Or do you have any thoughts about this? Something like that. Because there are a lot of people who, especially in our field, I think, who are really smart, but are also very shy. And we can help them by bringing them out. Okay, that's my spiel. Do you have any questions about the process, about the format? Okay.
I have a suggestion.
Yes.
You mentioned that sometimes you want to give like complete attention to the person that's speaking, right? He's comment or whatnot. The way I've addressed that in the past is having like a filter, like speaking filter. Like you cannot speak without having that option. That's what I've heard.
Do you want to try that?
Well, it's the first thing that I don't know if this one.
Is it toxic? What is it?
It's alcohol.
It's alcohol.
I don't know. Maybe a pen?
How about something work? No,
Maybe a header weave action.
There's a helmet over there.
This one, whatever this is. Alright.
It's a magic trick.
Okay.
Okay, so now we get to the point where we're posing questions. And I'm going to be a secretary and very basically record what they are, and now I will have the machine to install them. riff off, and given the climate now and the Wuhan virus and everything, I've been thinking, we should start just following the ties and do this for hello instead of shaking hands. What's more sanitary? So if I don't want to shake your hand, don't be offended. It's just a plain text editor. Who has a question? Any questions? Well, I have some sample questions that I put together earlier, or questions, generate questions. Is there a part of the Ruby language that you stay away from because you don't understand it?
The meta programming, like when you're sleepy and you don't understand the meta programming aspect. Like say if you go to the RSpec project and you're not completely focused.
We still let you
I don't really have any specific in mind. The first thing that came out was meta programming.
Okay. Or what do you wish you could do better or faster, or what do you wish other people would understand better? I have one pet peeve that bothers me. It's about spacing in source code, but it's not really a question. So forget it. Well, you know what? If you don't have any questions, then we don't have any questions. So I guess that's just part of the process. Oh, we have a question. Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Ruby and Ruby on Rails does a lot of like it's very tied into Heroku, right? So that would be considered platform as a service. But then, like, from what I understand, if you're in like Python and some of those ones, they might be more on like infrastructure as a service, like when they do their deployments on that. Is there like, do people do that kind of IaaS like within the Ruby or Ruby on Rails, or is it really like people are just really like to use the Heroku when they're doing some?
So is the question, do people use Ruby for infrastructure as much as people use Python for infrastructure?
More like I understand, like it's more like PaaS versus IaaS.
I don't
I'm curious what's the difference. I'm just saying it out loud.
Yeah.
You want to hear it. So what do you mean when you say PaaS? Platform as a service, infrastructure as a service.
Well, platform as a service is more like Heroku. Like it's very much because it's like you've got your API calls and do whatever you need to do. Whereas, like with the way I understand it, I haven't worked with Python very much, but like the way I understand it, if you're going to do something on Django, you can put your own servers together, which means you're more like renting out a server, like an AWS instance, and then building it. Whereas Heroku is already really set up for you, and Ruby's and Rails especially is really like streamlined for that, right? So I don't know. I guess my question is how is that a debate within the Ruby world or not really?
I guess the quickest way to solve that would be a quick survey. So, for the professional developers here, who among you are using Heroku or similar platform as a service? Anyone here who are using our spinning up EC2, Leno, DigitalOcean, and deploying from scratch?
Okay.
Anyone here who are already using Docker and services that allow you to just shove in your clusters and containers? Okay, so I guess that's a quick
Cross-board.
summary of what professional developers are using. So I think not really the problem, the idea that Ruby is more on Heroku is because it's easiest to introduce deploying with Heroku, because the alternative is spinning up your own server, which is kind of hard for someone who doesn't know any Linux sysad stuff. And the next step would be containerization, which is another kind of worms. But again, it's across the board for Ruby. I don't know about any studies. Are you guys familiar with any surveys of whether people are using AWS or people are using Heroku?
I think you can deploy Jackal to Heroku or AWS or even containerize it. It's basically up to your like proficiency and your skill set and what does your company need per se. So it's just basically which platform are you more comfortable with. So in our company we use a mixture of everything, because like if you have like those really small apps, just deploy it. If you have something that's production, then containerize it.
I think one interesting entry point for Heroku is like if you've seen any open source project that has like a sample app online, and they usually have a podcast there, like one click deploy to Heroku. I think that's for some beginner developers, that's where they first encounter Heroku, and that's I guess it's free marketing for them. And even though they're not using Ruby, they may end up using Heroku because that's what the first thing they started with.
Yeah, I think the prevalence of Heroku is because of the extreme convenience of using it. It just makes it so easy for Ruby developers to use it. But I've been in discussions where people have said things like, we just couldn't use Heroku anymore because it was too expensive. And so we had to move to something else. And at that point, they have to roll their own infrastructure.
Yeah, I guess in terms of cost, again, the lowest cost Heroku that you can do is $10 a month. 50? $5 that would still have some limits. I think 15. But you can also deploy a simple Rails app in DigitalOcean or any VPS for just $5, or you can find low cost and probably find it in $3 a month. But again, it's just not going to be handling that many users. Okay.
Thanks for the question. Next question. Okay. No questions. We got a question.
Not quite a Ruby question, but how do you fight the feeling of wanting to start from scratch all over again? Like when you're building something and you realize it's starting to become legacy. How do you find that urge to like, when is it time to build from new, or do I maintain this better?
How do you make a decision?
Yeah.
From rewriting everything,
Yeah.
and then just contain.
Hey, what are your thoughts on that?
Age-old question, rewrite versus
From scratch.
maintain the thing you're stuck with.
And in challenge, we think about like, what's the cost of it. Like, is it really worth it to rewrite everything? We waste this amount of time developing the existing features, rewriting it, and opposed to just like building on top, just doing a refactor or type time. Our code base is shit, but like, I went to Code Climate and our technical depth is 1 year. So I think it's more than 1 year. So, but in our perspective, it's basically like what's more important to you. Like, and our thing is we want in challenge we want to earn money so we can keep things afloat. So we build features so we can stay off the competitors. So we can't rewrite, so we build on top. then slowly refactor some things.
Among our decision to actually rewrite versus maintaining was the sole purpose of sprinkling our feature sets, as well as provide more microservice elements or segregate our platform into different domains. So coming from originally a monolith architecture, we decided to rewrite in terms of not actually inheriting certain features, but rather slimming down. So that's our main reason. And personally, it's absolutely old grades version of food.
Something I try to remind myself, am I doing this because I want to do it or because it's the best thing for me to do? You know, because I might have an intense curiosity to write something myself, but it's not really the wisest use of my time. Maybe it is, but you know, I try to question myself a little bit. And I've been a total failure in the passing around of that object thing, but it looks like we're doing fine without it, so let's keep doing what we're doing. Any other questions?
I have a comment of the question. I think one of the underappreciated values of legacy code is the amount of knowledge stored in that code. And whenever I think about rewriting legacy code, what stops me from rewriting is, will I be able to extract all that knowledge and put it into the rewrite? I might miss some and things will not work. So yeah, that's one of the things that stops me from doing it right.
Yes, just to add on top of what Brad said there. In our case, it actually depended on the client. So since the product that you're trying to rewrite or trying to propose to rewrite is already in production, so it's already money making. So they just can, okay, we just needed these features here, or they keep on going active, like, okay, we needed new features, but deep inside you're saying to yourself, like, but you're building on shit code, so it's bound to fail at some point. Then it's getting harder to maintain. So there's the urge to rewrite, or there's the need to rewrite, but then again, you need to still build on top of it. So the amount of you being on the same level, like, okay, let's stop here and let's rewrite. It's not matching up because they keep on trying to pile up and they're trying to go, let's rewrite, but you can't. So actually the resolution that we have there is like, okay, all the code moving forward would be built as if we're going at this, or like this should be maintainable for 5 years or so. But then looking at the old code, when you get the time, it's like, let's just rewrite it as much as we can, because like what Brad said, there's some code there, logic there that's really old. And actually, there's one joke in the community. It's a bug that was hidden way before, and now it's actually a feature. and you're trying to fix the bug. Because if you're actually trying to maintain the bug because it's already a feature. We actually found that this is supposed to be a bug, but no, the client's already using it.
Does anyone have a success story in persuading management to refactor code or rewrite code?
What was it? Yeah. What was the argument?
Basically, it's just have to balance it out. Like, you know, we started from 2 week sprints. We started doing 6 weeks based on, I'm not sure if you read Shape Up
You're sharing. So from Basecamp, so we started doing that because number one, our app is 11-year-old. There's a lot of features that are in there. Test coverage not great. So it's not consideration. So what we did is, okay, let's do 6-week sprints and work on it. And during that time that we're trying to build out features, we discussed that there's some certain parts of our app are not maintainable anymore. So like our core adapter is not maintainable anymore. So we had to rewrite it. So it's just really just balancing out like, hey, we're gonna build this feature, but we need to build this. We need to refactor this feature. So it's just like a balance. So you're giving something to the product owners, then they're giving something back to the developers. So it's just a give and take.
So what are you giving for our number?
So we give the features to the product owner. Okay, we're building this, but you also have to give us time to refactor some of the older parts.
You're mixing new
Yeah,
features
we're
with
mixing,
refactoring
yeah.
within the same sprint.
Yeah. So then in shape-up, you have to just really define like, hey, these are the things that we're gonna build, and these are the things that we're gonna fix. And
So shape up includes the discussion of this X and
like right now we have on our tournament model, it's like 1,000 lines. We have state transitions in it. I'm not sure if you have state transitions in there, but yeah, ours is very read-ready. So we decided to like re-architect it in some way, but right now we can't build it because we have to build features first. Build the feature first, then do the refactoring. It's the marriage of it.
To add to, because I remember you mentioned Basecamp. Basecamp has an interesting case for a rewrite. Because while they did do a rewrite of Basecamp like 2 times, so there's Basecamp 2, and Basecamp 3. They didn't really abandon the previous version. So what they did is like a complete app rewrite, like not just a rewrite, but a rethinking of the whole thing. Like they started from the same problem, but arrived at a different way of solving it in Basecamp 2 and Basecamp 3. And what they did was, they said to the users of Basecamp 1, hey, we're moving to Basecamp 2, but don't worry if you still prefer the old way of doing things, we'll still maintain it, but we will never add more users to that platform. So that's, I guess, what do you call it, a more responsible way of, but it's like a middle ground. Like, you don't really, you still retain some of the knowledge you have from the legacy code while not being entirely tied completely to the drudgery of that old code, because you can rethink of a new way of solving the same problem with a new hack. So that's one. And there's also Visual Studio, I think. I'm using VS Code, but I know there was a previous editor for Microsoft, like this Visual Studio. I think it's mostly siloed to Microsoft programmers, and that's why they decided to, okay, we want to appeal to more open source, or maybe Linux developers or whatever, or JavaScript developers or whatever other segment of the programmer market. And so they rewrote VS Code without completely abandoning Visual Studio for the ones who are already used to it. So it's still, I think it's still running, both are still running, and different teams are running the same, those 2 editors, same with Basecamp. And I think one story of bad rewrite story like this, I think Netscape, like the first browser, right? It is Netscape. It's not even free, and I think they got overtaken by Microsoft Internet Explorer, largely because of they're behind schedule because of the rewrite, and they never had an alternative of like, well, we can maintain they just completely scrapped the old legacy software and just rewrote and rewrote it, I think, and they didn't catch up on time with IT, and that's why they got it off. But the old code was somehow extracted into Mozilla Firefox, which then also died but then also resurfaced as Firefox. So I guess it's kind of a mixed bag. So
Sometimes a rewrite can have disastrous consequences if the timing is wrong. You know what I'm saying?
I guess the base camp strategy is a good one because as Brad said, you're still somehow not completely throwing away that domain knowledge of it, but still you have freedom to like critique the whole UI and the whole, and you don't have to think about upgrading the whole legacy version to a new Rails version because they've completely barred any new users from coming in, and it will just die out eventually after a long period of time. I guess I don't know, but at least you don't really have new users complaining na hey, why do we don't have this feature? They've been given a decision to either migrate to the new platform or stick with the old one.
Well, I have a question for you. Regarding the problem about missing legacy business logic, not so duplicated or possibly missing it, what are all of you doing for your successors to be able to understand how your code works?
Read the comments.
What's that?
Read the comments. Read the comments.
Read the comments.
Don't ask me anything until you read the comments.
I have something to add to that.
Well,
Whenever I actually just left my previous company, so I had to transition my knowledge to the guys that remain on my company. Yeah, they can have it. So I just left my previous employer recently, and I had to transition some of the things that I had to the other developers. So what I did was we had this like a day. We spent a day discussing the old code basically. So after discussing that, just gave them what I actually told them was a few of my like hacks, like hackish stuff that I did. So what they did on them is that in order for this to work, we got like some of these things. Because our code was basically shit. So what I did, like we spent a day just discussing how this stuff works.
That was helpful, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But in some cases, people leave without notice,
Yeah.
Fuck this, I'm out.
Sorry?
Yeah. Those people like, fuck this, I'm out.
Yeah.
Sometimes go, sometimes not.
Ideally, it should be well tested. Not 100%, but tests would provide the better documentation. Personally, ideally, there would be multiple sources of information, not just documentation. Well, there's documentation. It's just common courtesy. If you're going to leave a project or leave the company, you're going to leave some of your personal notes, put it in a wiki or put it in a document in the source code. Another thing would be to have your client, if you're working in service type, you're not owning the product, you're building a product for someone, you have someone on your client's end who knows the app, at least most of the app, such that if there's a problem, you can ask that person, and if that person leaves, it's their problem, not your company's problem. But again, comments is, again, that's just the basic. Especially Git comments. That's one of the first things I learned when I was a beginning developer, because I was also asked to work on a code where the previous developer didn't put proper commit comments. So when I was looking at the history and why is this code broken, I was still using CVS back then, not Git. So why it's broken, and the comment is just a dot. So
That's way worse.
so personally, that's when I told myself, if I'm going to make a comment, at least the comment has to make some sort of sense. It's not going to be well documented, not going to be a novel explaining what the hell I did, but at least some sense of what I was doing at that time, so that in the future you can figure out if this is a bug or is this a feature. So yeah.
Does anybody have documentation, high-level technical documentation in your operation about?
We usually do some kind of onboarding documentation that is somehow universally applicable for emails, for QAs, as well as for this, like server lists, a more simplified way perhaps for your code base. Stuff that is needed to be done, like certain list of tech stack or vendor stack that the platform is using, something like that.
Expiration date of certificates.
Cycle of vendors.
Recently, I was looking at the dev.to code base. Are you familiar with dev.to? Well, for those who don't know, it's a blogging platform where you can post your blogs, and unlike my own personal blog site, they have better search engine optimization than I would. But anyway, it's an open source product. You can host your own dev.to site if you want to, and many people do. And they have a doc-stop dev.to, I believe it is, which is really good. And so, if you approach the project, you can rate it, and so that kind of thing is really helpful as well. And it seems like some companies are trying to get more better at this. So GitLab in particular, I heard, has a lot of documentation on their site. But it's a balance, isn't it? Because if you're on a team that doesn't, if you're not in a big mega company, how do you allocate one person to spend months writing stuff?
I think there's one particular tool that's we overlook. I think if you write a good spec of the features that you want the developers to do, actually comes from the client side or from the PMs or the project managers. But for example, the tracking system or the ticketing system that we're using when we're asking features, if the person who's writing that provides a good specification, as well as in bug reports, how to replicate it, what's happening, screenshots. Then the next time you onboard, and what does this code do? Really just search. Actually, in pull request, there's also a tie-up to that one. If you're, for example, if ticketing systems in the VRs, if you could connect those to using the ID or the link, then it's easier. What does this do? What does this code do? Then, okay, then there's the spec. Then it would probably explain to the new developer being onboarded to the project, like, okay, this is how it is. These are the bugs that happen to it. Here we are now. I think that would be a much faster way of onboarding or getting someone to go into a deep dive of the code instead of asking someone, because in our experience now, actually in my client, no one knows the spec anymore. Everyone.
How old is everybody?
3 years.
3 years.
3 years. 3 years. 3 years. But when we got onboarded, everyone's new. Even the client person that we're talking to, everyone's new. So what's the spec for this? Okay, let's just do it. So the spec actually, we have two versions of it. So when you look, good thing the other developers or the old developers added the ID. So when I'm doing a deep dive on the code, it's like, okay, this ID, this is spec. we had a case recently of a magic number. It's either just 1 or 2, but no explanation. So when we looked at the spec, it's like this column should only show 1 or 2. No explanation. At least we have the spec. Okay, here's the spec. 1 or 2.
So wait, no reason why it's number 1 or not.
Yeah. Actually, the condition that I found, actually I thought it was wrong. Because if the value of the variable is greater than 0, then 1, else 2. Then I was like, isn't this supposed to be greater than or equal to 0? No. Okay, it's just magic.
You're talking about your new team reminded me of something I heard somebody say at a conference to another person. They said, the bus factor at my company is 0 because nobody knows what's going on.
I think speaking of bus factors, like we really need to strive it to make it more than 1 because when I was in Prague before, like my former mentors, they tell me that hey, the bus factor should be at least like half of the team should know the scope of the project. So I think what I did like for documentation, I just wrote the entire wiki for like what does this do, what does this do, then I let the other developers just add into the wiki, like if you did a feature or there's a specific code that we need to run for a bug, like just write it here so we know where it is. It's more like, I think it's more of communication with the team as well. Like you're letting the other team know that hey, this is what I did, and maybe they copy this bug, okay, this is what
That's great. Which wiki do you use?
we use GitLab for and Pivotal Tracker, but we migrated to GitHub, so then we use GitHub Issues right now for issue tracking, so everything's in GitHub.
And you use GitHub wiki?
Yeah, GitHub Wiki. I think it's just in one place.
Throw a couple things out there from not in the software world, but what comes to mind for it is I think there's a TDD book I was reading a little while ago where it's kind of like you leave the trail a little bit better than what you've got there. So like if you're on a trail and you see the little candy wrappers, you pick up a couple, you can pick up a couple. If you pick up 10 or 15, then you might have undone the work of 2 or 3 people who were on the trail before you. So if you can leave it in better condition than when you arrived, then that's just how things get better. I think that's a nice way to try and look at it. And the way he specifically talked about that when he was talking about doing TDD is like if you mimic the function that you're expecting to rewrite, then at least you don't know what else that code might be doing if it's tied together, but at least you can keep the function that you're doing running, and then it has a test in there, so you can improve your code coverage at the same time. That was the kind of his way of looking at it. When I thought about that, going back to my own, in Canada we do commercial tree planting. So you end up out on this field, like a block that was logged, so it's reforestation after logging. You end up out there with a crew of people that are all, it's a pretty fast-paced environment, a lot of physical exertion involved with it. And, people get pretty fired up sometimes, a lot of tempers sometimes, and the weather and everything. But you kind of all got your own little piece that you're working on, and when you're new to it, when you're a rookie, it's completely disorienting what's going on because it's very hard to see. You can't see the trees from what used to be a forest, and so like the chances as a rookie, the chances you get to follow closely behind somebody who's been doing it for a while, you go so much faster when you do that. And it just makes the whole crew work together much better when the newer guys can be following them behind some of those processes.
data modeling question. Agree with it. So how do we, let's say we have a database system for a hospital, and we have patients, of course, and we have patients who took an X-ray and details about their X-rays. So maybe we'll have patients underscore X-rays labels. And then we have patients who took polio vaccine and details about the polio vaccine when they took the first shot or the second shot. So maybe we'll have patients underscore polio vaccines labels. And then we have patients who took the measles vaccine. Maybe the details for it is slightly different from a polio vaccine, so we need a different data structure. And so we'll have patients underscore measles vaccines. And then we have
There should be a table containing vaccines or a link table between patients and vaccines.
another table. So we have patients with X-rays, patients with vaccines, and how about patients who underwent surgery? And we need to store the details of their surgery. So we'll have patients underscore surgeries.
Can you focus up here in the back? Can you hear?
Sorry. So if we have 200 different possible operations, we will have patients underscore something, 200 tables of that. It's easy if you only have 5, but it can easily explode. So how do people deal with this data model?
It doesn't sound like the first normal form or whatever. It sounds like it's breaking some rules of the database.
That's being normalized structure.
Yeah, it was a little bit unclear what you meant by that. So, like for example, in the
So it's
vaccine,
a star with lots of other tables.
Yeah, you got like your patients, so that's just one table. Shouldn't be different kinds of patients generally. But if you've got different tests, then that could be like tests, procedures. But to have them as different tables for when they're all past patients.
those vaccine tables, do they have patient information in them?
Yeah, you have the patient information in the patient's table.
Yeah, so
Okay.
it was in the name, but it wasn't part of the data of those tables. Nor the patient. That's what confused us. So it's vaccines for patients.
If you want to stick with relational hash store, you'll definitely have problems doing string-based search or go for document because medical information and lab results are really
There's no structure.
long-lasting problem for hospitals and lab equipment manufacturers. Until now, they are in the end number of standards. Like so far, it's FHIR for their standards for whatever structure they need for electronic records as well as lab. Lab records so far, the somewhat standard right now is type 2. It's where they put the lab results for CT scans, X-rays, MRI combined. So it has this subset of metadata, then the rest of whatever data hash keys they have for a specific lab result, as well as frame images there like that. So definitely can be solved into really figuring out what tables should they have as master files. It will be very unoptimized. That's why they are introducing document-based way of doing this because it's eventually impossible to optimize it. That's a problem I've had on our startup before. So the solution that we did is ditch the entire EHR altogether. we initially perceived the platform to have this electronic record system. But what I mentioned before, we downsized our feature set into a more slimmer, whatever, market fit initiative set of feature sets first. So we ditched the electronic records component. That's one of those factors.
Is there a regulation that, is there some laws that
Different
require,
countries have.
so hospitals should follow that standard?
No, that's why each hospital institution has their own set of preferred OEMs for their machines. They have some hospitals have different brands, so they produce different kinds of digital store for their lab results. But most of them are using based container, file container, which is pretty heavy to be utilized for web-based or web-based viewer. So yeah, it's a big problems in the healthcare industry.
Was that question specifically about medical data, or was it?
No, it's, I think medical data is an extreme example. That's why I used it. But I think many of us have encountered the data model where you have users, and then you have users underscore something, and also users underscore dimension 2, users underscore dimension 3, and you have a star schema with users at the center and so many other tables linked to it. And sometimes that's natural, but if you have 200 such tables, that's still the right structure.
Maybe it is.
I think you have to review your data, how much data is put into each table. If the data per patient isn't that much, you might want to just denormalize it and put it in the patient's table. You might consider. Because again, it depends on the use case. But again, in my personal experience, well, that's where the low-paid developers are for. they have to wade through all those 200 tables and try to make sense of that stuff. But yeah, sometimes you just have to deal with it.
I guess my question would be, is it that that's designed for what?
For what?
Yeah, like what's the intended outcome? If you're saying, is this the best way to do it? The question is for what?
But I kind of feel like we need 200 tables and also 200 models. And
Well, if it was source code, would they be 200 classes?
yes, 200 classes.
So I think it's the same thing. In a relational database, the table is connected to a.
So, well, one thing I looked at is put he said put a JSON B column. It's stuck in there.
Oh man.
That's what we actually used.
I do.
We had a bunch of tables with JSON keys. Because on my other company that I work in, say, we're dealing with the PO companies. So we don't really have a permanent data structure, or their fields. One company's fields are different from the other. So what we did was we categorized the fields into input content, output content, and metadata. So basically we just put stuff in there. So, but the drawback in that is we had reporting, which basically took some time to generate because those data are inside the JSON. So it's pros and there's cons.
The thing about the JSON B scares me though, because you lose all the semantic meaning of the data. It's just a blob of data text. Yeah. And it seems to me like if you want to model the data, in a way that's meaningful and that you can do things like reports on them meaningfully without having to delve into the low level, then tables are the best way to do it, even if they're a lot. Happy my gut feeling or something like that.
Do you know the term for this kind of model? I have a vague memory that it's called sparse tables, but I'm not so sure anymore, and I did a Google search on it. See. So the notion that there's this user or patient, and it has object 1 and object 7 and object 13, and then the next patient has object 8 and object 105 and object
Well, in present sparse arrays, for example, if you had an array of those things, rather than having an array that could have like n, that would have n elements, you would just have you would just have the ones that exist. But you know, that's
I've been trying to find the term.
But in a relational database, wouldn't you just have like the key link between the two, like patient and X-ray result or something like that?
But I think it makes sense to do it the JSON way if you have things that, so not all, again, hospital data model, not all patients will have all the tests. They will only have some of the tests. So you might not want them to be in all the tables. But they will not be in all the tables.
So there are, in your scenario, there is a patient ID in those test results records.
Yes.
That's so you're right. That's what he was. So, like, for example, if you have 1,000 patients, it'll be 1,000 records for patient X-rays.
No,
1,000.
No.
that's not what he's saying. I think the concern is that you basically have, in the example, 200 tables that link to the patient table, and then each patient record actually doesn't have any data in most of the 200 tables. Maybe just one table is populated for that patient because none of the other tests are relevant to it.
But I don't understand why that's a problem.
Yeah, like say there's a particular lab in the hospital that only gets 5 patients a year, so they only produce 5 records a year. So there's this one table that is really small because it's just not being used that much. Or there's a patient who's come in and he got 1 test and then didn't come back again. Like they both end up in the user table, and they're whatever interaction they had with that lab or that test is recorded there, and those are small tests. Like that by itself doesn't sound like something that's going to get loaded. I don't know if you're trying to reduce bloat. Like if they did 200 tests, it's because the doctor said that the guy needed 200 tests. So unless you've got bloat coming up somewhere, or I'm having trouble pinpointing what your concern is.
I'm trying to identify the pattern. There's a term for this. And I first encountered this in a discussion about the original solution I remember now is what the naive solution was to have 200 columns. Let's say you have a patient and there are 200 possible tests for patients. So you put 200 columns on the patient's table. But you don't need, not all patients will have all those 200 tests. So that's good. So you don't want that. So yeah, the other solution is to put it in another table, and you will only have a row there if you have a test. So you have patients' tests and patients' tests. I don't know, I probably thinking two different problems.
And like the second one becomes problematic when there has to be a lot of different linking to pull all the information at the same time. As I understand, I've never come across it myself. So deal and stuff like that. But like, if someone were making like a big report that was covering a whole bunch of stuff, and so the database had to go and link like 5 or 8 different times just to pull one piece together that would be like a report, then that's where the performance issues come in on that like end member stream. So then you might have a test that gets done, but they only did half of the fields. So you've got the test as its own test, and you didn't actually do the entire test. So some of that's empty, but you can still pull it quickly. I don't know. It depends on what you're doing.
Sounds like something that's good to ask in a DBA clinic or something. Because yeah, we also have to be aware that we need to find the right experts to answer some of our questions, because a lot of Rails developers tend to deal with the data as well. So they study SQL and all the other techniques or information needed in the database world, but then we're all just beginners compared to real DBA experts. So yeah, probably could ask some DBA.
You have more time, or you want to close it out?
We can have one more question.
Anybody? Last question? Maybe for somebody who hasn't spoken too much? Paul?
Where's the best place to be after?
Well, we've had a lot of fun, so I feel good about what we did. So we can end it now with a different.
Alright.
Okay. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Keith, for facilitating the Alright, thank you again for Expanse for graciously opening your office for the first prop meetup. Thank you again, David. And thank you everyone who attended.
Thanks for opening the meeting.
Thank you.
For this camera setup.
PTR.
See you in the future.
We'll see it on YouTube.
Like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe.
Ring the bell for notification.